Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Thursday, February 27th edition of the MMAOB Daily Podcast. I'm your host, as always, Adam Martin, and I'll be taking you guys through the latest in the world of mixed martial arts. Not a ton to talk about today. Kind of in a slow news week. UFC Norfolk coming up Saturday. We'll have a lot to talk about after that, I'm sure. Next month's going to be crazy. We got UFC 248 and a bunch of other cards. UFC Columbus, which should be a good one. UFC Brasilia. I think there's a Bellator card too, but this last week for February is not the most newsworthy week, I'd say. So, short show today. A couple fight announcements and a few pieces of news. Let's get right into it. Start with Tito Ortiz. His fight against Alberto Del Rio, which was originally a first-round submission win for Tito Ortiz, has been changed into a no decision by the Texas Athletic Commission. And it could still be changed back to a win. But right now, it is a no decision or no contest. We don't really know why at this point. There is, I guess, kind of rumors that he might have failed a drug test, but there's nothing out there right now definitive. So kind of strange. I mean, Texas kind of beats to their own drum, the commission there. They do a lot of sketchy kind of things as far as overturning fights go. Like if a guy tests positive for a small, minuscule amount of weed, they've been known to overturn those decisions in the past. So maybe he tested positive for weed. I don't really know. I don't want to speculate. It's not really fair to Tito. It's just kind of weird. Like this fight was a joke anyways, right? Like I don't know if he did smoke a joint or something, he gets caught for a small amount of weed. Like that'd be a pretty awful way to lose a win on your record, right? It's actually the first no contest of Tito's career. He's been around since 1997, so 22 years, and his first no contest. That's weird. So all of those other fights have been fine. He had the one draw with Rashad Evans back in 2007, but otherwise, like it's either win or loss for Tito Ortiz. So very kind of strange piece of news here. Again, could still be changed back to a win once they figure out exactly what happened. But yeah, just speculation out there right now, and that's all it is. So don't know exactly what it was, but his win is a no decision. And that basically was the biggest piece of news yesterday. There wasn't a lot to talk about. A few other things here. There are small notes that I want to mention. PFL is actually going to hold an award show, which is pretty cool. The UFC doesn't even do an award show, and PFL already has one. Like that's kind of crazy. Like PFL is only going to be in its third season this year. They're trying to really become a legitimate organization, I think, in MMA and sports in general. They're on ESPN now, obviously. I think this is a good idea. I looked at the categories, and you know, there's not a lot of fighters to choose from. So there's a lot of the same fighters like Lance Palmer and Ray Cooper. Like you'll see a lot of those guys. In the women's division, obviously going to be run over by Kayla Harrison, but it is pretty cool they're at least doing that. And they also have like categories like most improved fighter, besides the obvious ones like best fighter of the year and best knockout and stuff like that. So I think it's pretty cool. I'd love for the UFC to do the same thing, to have like an awards night, like most of the other big sporting organizations like the NHL. They have an awards night, and MLB does their awards, and NFL does the awards, and NBA does the awards. UFC wants to be taken seriously as a top sport. They need to have an awards night. I know they had something like the Toyo Tires like awards last year that were voted on. I haven't really heard anything since then about that. But yeah, why don't they have it like in awards? It's 2020. It's a great time to start it. You know, you got best fighter, male and female, and then best knockout, best submission, best fight, best event. It's crazy. Like every MMA journalist, including myself, does a piece at the end of every year giving their awards. Why doesn't the UFC do it? PFL does it and UFC doesn't. That's crazy. Zabit Magomedsharipov, he spoke to the Russian media the other day and basically talked about his cardio issues. And he agreed that the criticism is fair, that he does actually have cardio issues. And basically said that the weight cut is what's getting him. And I don't think that's much of a surprise because the guy's huge. He's a big featherweight. He is one of the bigger featherweights in the UFC, 6'1.5". He's just a very tall dude. He has to cut a ton of weight to make 145. And now I'm starting to think, like, is his future at 145 or is it at 155? I think he'd still be really good at 155. Now, obviously, I'd love to see him fight for the 145-pound title. I think he probably should have been next. But, of course, they're giving the rematch to Max Holloway against Volkanovski. But I think Zabit could have been next. So he's probably going to have to take one more fight. The Yair fight would be a good fight. Brian Ortega has been a rumored fight. Not sure what's going on here with Zabit. I just want to see him book soon. He hasn't fought since November against Cater. Great fight there. He won fight of the night for that and won a decision. And right now he's actually on a 14-fight win streak, including a 6-0 mark in the UFC. So the guy is tremendously talented. But we need to see him in a 5-round fight, guys. 3 rounds is just not enough. We got to see him tested in a 5-round fight. You want to talk about Zabit being a legitimate title contender. He's got to go for 5 rounds or less. So Zabit hopefully gets a main event slot in his next fight that's actually a 5-round fight this time, not a 3-round fight. And I think Yair would be a good fighter, Brian Ortega, or even Korean Zombie. Those are all really good fights. Hopefully get him back in the cage soon. But it was kind of interesting to hear him admit what a lot of us observers see in him, and that is a flaw in his cardio. A couple fight announcements here. Okay, UFC 248, Movsar Evlov has been injured, and I was reading about it today, and apparently he's been hurt in a motorcycle accident, and I don't know if it was his fault. I think he actually was hit by someone else, but I saw the picture today. Someone had to Reddit, and man, he got banged up. So Movsar Evlov is out of this fight with Jamall Emmers, who himself was filling on short notice, and now Emmers will be taking on Giga Chikadze, who was supposed to fight Mike Davis this weekend at UFC Norfolk. And actually, I have a funny story about that. So I was telling a guy at bowling yesterday what my team would be for a tournament coming up in a few months. And he goes, okay, what's the guy's name, right, as my teammate? And I go, it's Mike Davis. He's like, who's Mike Davis, right? I'm like, it's Mike Davis. I'm like, you don't know him? Like, he's been bowling here for years, right? And the guy's just like, yeah, I don't know who Mike Davis is. And then I realized later on his name was Mike Evans. And I was calling him Mike Davis because I was reading about that fight yesterday, which I thought was hilarious. And my buddy on the team who's a huge UFC fan, just like, dude, like, his name's not Mike Davis. I thought it was funny anyways. Just a small little anecdote there. But, yeah, as far as this fight goes, Jamall Emmers versus Giga Chikadze. Jamall Emmers is a guy who probably should have been in the UFC a while ago. Right now he's on a 4-fight win streak. He's an LFA guy. He was in the Contender Series a couple years ago, got knocked out by Julian Rosa, but a very dangerous guy, and he's got a lot of finishes in his career, a lot of experience. LFA guy, LFC, Legacy Fighting Championship guy before when it was that promotion. He actually has a really notable win over Corey Sandhagen from 2017, so a great win. 3 years ago, sure, it's not the same Corey Sandhagen we know now in the UFC, who's just an absolute monster, but still a good win on your resume. And the guy's a solid fighter with a 17-4 record, and he's only 30 years old, so really in his prime. And then Giga Chikadze, he is coming off a win over Brandon Davis in his UFC debut, overall 8-2. He's 31 years old, just a little bit older, Georgian fighter. Another guy who was on Contender Series a couple years ago, lost to Austin Springer by rear naked choke. Since then, won 3 straight fights, including that split decision win over Brandon Davis, which I just mentioned. Interesting fight here for sure. Both guys kind of were, booked against other opponents, so they've been kind of thrown into this matchup here. I don't know. It's hard to say who's going to win this one. I assume the line will be very close. Maybe a slight lean towards Emmers, but definitely a close fight. UFC Oklahoma City gets an interesting featherweight bout. Charles Rosa against Bryce Mitchell. And my guy Mike Hecht at BJPenn.com actually broke the news for this fight. So good fight here. Charles Rosa, 33 years old, 12-3 in his career, 3-3 in the UFC, coming off a really nice win over Manny Bermudez. One performance of the night. In 6 fights, he's won 4 bonuses, Charles Rosa. So the guy's an exciting fighter. He's been in the UFC since 2014. Really, his most notable win, I guess, would be Bermudez, which is a decent win. But, this guy, when he's stepped up in competition, has lost to Yair and Shane Burgos. So he's a solid fighter for sure, but he's getting up there now at 33. I mean, he's not at spring chicken anymore. I think this is make or break time for Charles Rosa. Definitely a dangerous guy, but he only fights once a year. And when you only fight once a year, it's very hard to develop momentum in the UFC. Anyways, he takes on Bryce Mitchell here, and Bryce Mitchell is coming off arguably submission of the year last year when he tapped out Matt Sales with a twister at UFC Washington, D.C. And overall, this guy's 3-0 in the UFC. He is 12-0 in his career. He was an Ultimate Fighter, and he lost to Brad Katona on the show, but it's not a pro fight. So technically, as a pro, he's undefeated, although we do know he lost that fight. But yeah, this guy is really good. His ground game's awesome. Out of his 12 wins, 9 by submission, including that twister. And the fight should be pretty interesting. I think it's a close fight. I think Rosa definitely can win, but I think Bryce Mitchell will be favored. He is 25 years old. He's a lot younger. He's undefeated, and he's coming off a twister win. So I think a lot of people are going to give him respect in this fight, and I think he will be favored. And the last matchup here, talk about quickly, UFC Austin. This card will be taking place in June, so another new card's been announced for UFC, and Austin, Texas is the home of it. Jennifer Maia will be taking on Viviane Araujo in the UFC women's flyweight division. And Jennifer Maia is 17-6-1 in her career in the UFC. She's just 2-2. She beat Roxanne Modafferi, which was a good win, but she missed weight. She also missed weight against Caitlin Chikadze, lost that fight. And she has a win over Alex Davis and a loss to Liz Carmouche. She is a former Invicta champion. She's a pretty talented fighter, but the fact she's missed weight twice really concerns me. 31 years old, make or break time. She misses weight, she's getting cut. I mean, they can't keep her around. I'm surprised they're giving her another shot of anything, but that division's very shallow. They need all the fighters they can get. But yeah, Maia is definitely an experienced, talented fighter. And she does have 2 wins over Roxanne Modafferi, which are obviously really notable wins, as well as a win over Jessica Andrade in 2012. That's before Jessica kind of turned into the monster she is now, but still a good win on paper. And Maia takes on Viviane Araujo here. And Viviane Araujo, 8-2, 33 years old, so she's getting up there in age as well, especially for this division. One of the probably older fighters in this division at this point. Coming off a decision loss to Jessica at UFC 245. Before that, though, had won 5 straight fights, including back-to-back wins over Talita Bernardo in Brazil at a card I was at last year in Rio, and also against Alexis Davis last year in Edmonton. So pretty talented fighter in her own right. Definitely a close fight, but I think based on Maia's experience at the higher levels of sport and 5-round fights, I think that will help her too. Not that this is a 5-round fight. I just think fighting for belts and fighting for a complete fight is going to really help her. So I would lean towards Maia a little bit, but I hope she makes weight because, man, if she misses weight and she's like the only contender in this division, what happens then, right? I mean, Roxanne might get the title shot, but Roxanne just lost to Jennifer just 2 fights ago, so no idea what's going to happen there. Anyways, again, short show today, guys, so I think that's going to be it for today, just because there's not much to talk about. I'll look again just to see if I forgot to talk about anything. Not too much. I don't know if I mentioned yesterday, though, there's that clip of Joseph Benavidez tapping out Ryan Seacrest with the guillotine. That's pretty funny. That's floating around. But yeah, that's about it. There's also this Joshua Fabia guy did some interviews yesterday. Kind of ridiculous, but anyways. In the meantime, guys, follow me on Twitter at MMAOB, and I'm available at bjpenn.com, MMAoddsbreaker.com, and MMAratings.net. So definitely follow my work there. Have a great day. I'll be back tomorrow for the Friday edition of the podcast. Bye.